Week 1 game, Buffalo got rolling. Baltimore really never did. They finished 8-9, and John Harbaugh, their longtime head coach, lost his job. Ravens hired former Chargers defensive coordinator Jesse Minter to replace him. They also lost center Tyler Linderbaum in free agency to the Raiders. They briefly had Max Crosby in a trade with Vegas, but then they backed out of that. Signed defensive ends Trey Hendrickson and Calais Campbell as well. The ageless Campbell spoke yesterday about why he decided to come back to Baltimore after a few years away.
Eric DeCosta called pretty much every year, but this year it was more like, I got to have you. This is going to make a big difference. And I felt that. And I believe that, this team has all the tools to win. Where can I go where I can make plays and win games? And Baltimore made the most sense when it came down to that.
Hawk, Calais Campbell sure has seen a lot of football. When he says the Ravens have all the tools to win this year, do you agree with him?
I agree. And I think Calais Campbell's a big piece of that. We came out in the same draft class. I've been out of football for almost 10 years, and he's still playing. But
it's crazy.
Him as a leader, besides the fact he's a productive defensive lineman, versatile, and a leader, the fact he's a leader in the locker room is important because there's two things that need to happen for the Ravens to be a contender. Number one, they got to establish an identity that is not going to be easy after moving on from John Harbaugh with Jesse Minter coming in there, which means that identity better be rooted in defense. And number two, Lamar Jackson has to stay healthy. Why are the Ravens a contender? Well, the same reason they're always a contender, because Lamar Jackson is such a unique talent, and anytime he's healthy and they are clicking, there's a force multiplier that happens with this team that makes them one of the best teams in the National Football League. So if they can do those two things, Calais Campbell's exactly right. They have the guy at the quarterback position, number 8. That means that they're a contender.
I love what you're saying, especially with Calais Campbell, because you don't know what's going to happen with Nnamdi Madubuike, with everything he's going through with his injury. And then you mentioned Lamar Jackson. The fact that he's been in the building throughout the course of the offseason is huge. They moved on from Harbaugh, Minter's there. That shows that he is loving the changes and that he is all the way bought into what is going on now. Because where this team goes is going to happen between the relationship with Lamar Jackson and Declan Doyle, the new offensive coordinator, who's going to bring a different system over where he's going to be using multiple tight ends. He's going to be trying to get the run game going and then leaning on the play action pass where Lamar Jackson is special in that department. Last year, when he came back from injury, seemed a little bit slower. And then he got to that last game against Pittsburgh, and we saw the marvelous Lamar that we were used to. Can he continue that trajectory and get back to being the Lamar we know him as this season?
Yeah, for me it's all about Declan Doyle more than anything. I'm very confident in 100% solid on Jesse Minter. Again, how exactly will he be as a full head coach? No idea, but I just think that this defense will absolutely positively be better. And get back to being a true asset for the Baltimore Ravens. And I guess I'm one of the only people that don't just absolutely love and worship Harbaugh. He's not bad. I think honestly, his time with the Ravens, specifically with Lamar Jackson, obviously I know he won the Super Bowl and whatnot, but specifically his time with Lamar, it's the perfect representation of what a Harbaugh can bring. I bring stability. This team could be pretty good, right? We're pretty competitive. We're not a joke, we're not a mess. We can weather some storms. We can have a rough season and then bounce back, or have a tough loss one year and still be competitive. And he's stability. He's a grown-up. He knows how to fill out, he knows how to operate a draft and free agency, knows how to interact with the media, knows how to, develop and talk with players, etc., etc. Perfect. But it's not this oh my gosh super genius redefining the NFL oh my gosh, as long as you got a hardball blah 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 blah, and it's just and that's why I'm excited to have Minter there. I'm excited to have a feeling that, to me the Baltimore Ravens defense, we should be having the feeling like we have about the Houston Texans or the Seattle Seahawks or the Chargers, right? Where it's just this defense is for real, man. This defense is for real. And the feeling that everyone is buttoned up, that everyone is, just feeling actually disciplined. I mean, this team has felt so undisciplined. So undisciplined in it, and it drives me crazy, it's continued to drive me crazy for years. And that's what makes Jesse Minter really such a fascinating coach, because especially these defensive coaches, they typically are like very serious, but like you could just see it. You look at them and you can be like you're a tightly wound person. Like you could just see it. D'Amico, McDonald, there's a couple of names I'll say, but we'll just leave it aside. Halfley, like you could just see it. You're like, okay, like you are not someone who I'm like, excited to just like hang out with on a weekend. But like Minter, for what he kind of breaks that trend. He breaks that trend, and I'm fascinated to see how that works as a head coach. And I think it actually works. It'll work pretty well with Baltimore. It's a way to get everyone to feel really disciplined, and again, like everyone understanding, everyone being on the same page but still having a lightness. It's what Andy Reid Inc. brings remarkably to any team that he's with, quite frankly, over the years, but just like in terms of how he runs a team, where like everyone knows, like, dude, when Andy's there, like you are focused, you're getting after it, but like there's air to breathe. I just saw like a clip or heard a quote about like, with Bill Belichick, like there's no oxygen. There's nowhere to breathe. And then you have other coaches that keep everything too loose, and then you're just it's human nature. When things are a little bit too loose, like it's just things just get loose. No matter how much you care. No matter how focused you are. Like, coaches are important, not just from the X's and O's, but like, they really do monitor and control and influence the environment, the momentum, the intentionality, the focus. Like they have a lot of power over just the mentality of players. Like it's like it's a fascinating thing that happens. It really is. Just like growing up, how your parents kind of like control the energy and the vibe of like, like I just even like a dinner or something, or, whatever, or how a teacher in a classroom can, everyone knows. You go to this one, you have this one teacher, and the teacher is like super fun and light, and it's great, and you can get away with whatever you want. And you have another teacher where you're just like, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing ever. This person is, you can't even talk for a second, or otherwise you get in trouble. And so it's like coaches really do control that environment, and I think it's been broke. And I think that's different than just culture. I'll just refer to it as environment. And I think that environment has been broken a little bit. And you saw them kind of being all a little bit weird about it, where it was like, we're going to take the games out. No, we actually like the games. They're like, no, the games don't really matter. Like you could see. It's just kind of weird. So I'm excited about that, but I still do think that ultimately about how great and how special this team can be, and can they finally get over the hump and win the Super Bowl, it will be the evolution of this offense. It'll be the evolution of this offense, the evolution of Lamar Jackson still having room to grow and take steps forward, right? Having more consistent offensive play. And I don't mean from Lamar. I just mean as a whole. Make things easier, right? Make things more consistent. And I'm just that does not fall on the shoulders of Jesse Minter at that point. So, I really am interested to see, can this offense finally evolve? Can there be more progress from Lamar Jackson at this point of his career, because that will be the make or break. That will be the make or break. Not getting Harbaugh out of the door, not getting a new voice, not improving the defense, all of that why? LL be great, all of that will be beneficial, but at the end of the day, what does the execution look like when you're in the third quarter, 8 minutes to go, it's a 3-point game, and Lamar Jackson has the ball on his own 30? That's how we're going to figure out if you're going to win or lose the Super Bowl. What are you going to do? Right? What are you actually making smart, strategic play calls? Do you actually have the right game plan going into? I know it's crazy to think that you actually have an appropriate game plan going into a playoff game. I know it's a crazy concept, something that the Ravens just felt that I guess they just don't care about. But like, do they actually have the appropriate game plan? And it's like that's what it comes down to. Just think about even like a game against the Steelers, right? Where like we saw Lamar be healthy again at that final game where we saw some of the magic, and it was still like they were just kind of slipping and sliding on ice. Like none of it was intentional. None of it was planned. Like none of it was like, okay, this is what we're going to do here. And it continues to drive me insane. So, I'm just looking this I made kind of a similar take, albeit very differently, with the Bills of just like both of these teams have been so much closer than anyone wants to admit, and especially so much closer than the Bills would admit about the Ravens and the Ravens would admit about the Bills, Ifically the fan bases, that there's so much more similarities than differences and then why they both come up short, a lot more similarities than differences there. And it's like you're just ready to see the defense elevate and be a true asset and the offense feel like it can just play more on time, more structured, having the margin of error wider and not just relying on your superstar elite all-time great quarterback to constantly make magic play after play after play, quarter after quarter, week after week, year after year. And so that's why it's like I'm more hyper-focused on the offensive side of the ball, the coordinating, even though you obviously just hired a new defensive coach. Those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens? How do you feel about kind of the moves that they made this off-season, the direction that they're going in? Do you think this will finally be the time that they can I don't even want to say move forward, just regain their dominance, right? Regain their greatness. The Ravens had a few year stretch where it was like this is just one of the scariest, most dangerous teams you could face, you just Lamar Jackson, elite defense, right? And you're just like it's exhausting. And then the last couple of years it hasn't been that way, right? It just hasn't been that way for various reasons, right? And so it's just like can they just get back to that level? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment, whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get into some discussions, let's get into some fights, but ultimately let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here. I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be a part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.